Hey everyone. Uh, Allie, go for the intro first.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I am Allie Kerr. I'm the head of community at NFX, which is a pre-seed and seed stage venture fund based in San Francisco and Tel Aviv. As the head of community, I manage our global portfolio of over 130 portfolio companies, and we work on all of the post-investment support that we provide to all of our companies. So thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'll now give a brief intro about me. I'm Joel Primack. I currently host the Community-Led Growth Show. It's a podcast talking to amazing community professionals and learning more about their journeys and hopefully sharing their learnings with other people who are just starting off and in their community building journeys. So that's a brief intro. We're going to have a fun conversation today on engagement strategies to keep your community top of mind for your members. No matter if you're a VC firm who has a head of platform or a head of community like Allie, or if you're in-house and you're working with customers or non-customers as well. Bless you. um, I saw that, don't worry. So with that, I'll kick it over to Allie. Where would you like to start today's conversation?
I think where I'd like to start is somewhere where we're really focusing on NFX. We're a really data-oriented firm, which is one of the reasons why I joined. We have a product team, we have engineers, and we're building in-house products and ways to analyze the data that I haven't seen at other funds. And so now on the platform team, we're really focusing on how data drives the decisions we make to support portfolio companies, but that translates to community. So when we're thinking about what's fueling our NPS? Where is that coming from? Doubling down on the areas that we're seeing all of the, engagement come from. Where are those metrics coming from? Event attendance, trends over time. And I'm loving talking about it lately, so I would love to kick it off there.
Ooh, I always love talking about data, and especially in community, because depending on the type of community your organization has, it's going to have different business outcomes and North Star metrics.
Yeah,
Because, and I'm an advocate for you need to have that in place so that then the community and or platform team can then advocate for more resources when they can clearly show that they're doing their job successfully and effectively.
totally, totally. I think it all comes back to kind of proving that the value of community.
Mhm.
And, there's a lot of vanity metrics. And so really understanding the why and the how and the what really helps you story tell on what the community is providing value for you. So happy to kind of talk about what we're measuring, but I'd also love to hear how you think about it for your communities.
Yeah. Why don't you start? Because you're in the VC space in a platform community role, and then I'll share some of my thoughts on communities, both for customers slash product, and then for communities of practice.
Perfect. Yeah.
Cool.
So we're looking at, just time spent with portfolio companies, what areas that they are using the most support for. So there's a lot of different ways, at the seed and pre-seed level, we're always analyzing where we can support founders the most. And so if we're seeing that, for a certain amount of time, all of our founders are asking about fundraising, we're really going to kind of focus on how we can get ahead of it, how we can build more products or maybe some one-to-many playbooks or systems that they can use to help them with their fundraise. And so it helps us to look ahead and plan instead of being reactive. And I think that really helps us create that proactive support. Um, I love NPS as my North Star metric. I have been in community a while. I think there's a lot of vanity metrics. I don't know if that's controversial to say, but you know, you can throw 100 events, but if none of them are substantial, that number means nothing. And so when I really think about engagement and trends over time, it's, is your NPS improving? Is engagement improving? And is it positive? Is it going in is a positive direction? And NPS really kind of shows, are people happy with the content or the programming or how you're engaging. And it's the best way that I've seen that has measured that for us. So that's something that I love it. It's a tough one because it's hard to grow that once you get to a really high number, but I've always found it really valuable to see, if things are appreciated and they're connecting in the right way.
I definitely would agree. I'm a fan of NPS or something along the 1 to 5 star kind of rating scale,
Yeah.
whatever word it's supporting, whether it's like value or satisfaction, etc. I'm a fan of that because I also think, in essence, in any community, it's always about like helping people in whatever your community is focused on helping them with, whether it's a community of practice, helping them grow in their career. Are you finding value from attending our meetups, our events, our Slack community, our XYZ, you name it? Are you finding value from it? Is it helping you? Um, Similarly, I think in like a platform community role, it's extremely helpful too. And to your point, you said sometimes it's really difficult to make those improvements once you get up super high. I think that if you get to, in a few areas, a consistent high point where you can't really make too many more micro improvements, there's not too much wiggle room, maybe that's like the benchmark that you set then, that
Mhm.
like when good is good across our programs, this is the benchmark that we need to hit. And if we're not hitting this and we've missed it for 3 months or 6 months during a trial period consistently, gets cut. We have
Right.
to step up, step back, and
Yeah.
reevaluate it, think critically, and maybe do some of that like member, or in your case, like portfolio company interviews, digging around, understanding the why it wasn't hitting at that level that we know for us, our community standard NPS is around here. Why are we down here?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's a good way to think about where you should be, what you should be striving for. And continued growth is amazing, but also knowing where like that number where you're really hitting a stride is great.
Yeah. I think as you said, like growth is great, but the value is what's going to keep people engaged and keep the community top of mind. It doesn't
Yeah.
help if you have 50,000 members, but no one finds value from your community. It's probably fairly disengaged. Um, I don't personally think that that would be a huge success.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you think about what metrics, other than NPS,
Yeah.
are kind of fueling how you see engagement, what are those metrics that you look at?
Ooh. Um, One that I've heard recently that I really like and will start anchoring towards probably in the future is around recurring, whether it's for events, like recurring attendance
Mm,
or recurring participation, especially in, for example, like a mentorship program. Are we seeing recurring mentors who have had positive experiences? They really like giving back.
yeah.
Um, I think that that's like an interesting one to explore because I think it also could speak to the breadth of offerings and support and value that one can get from being active in your community too.
Yeah, definitely. So we met through Community Hacked, which
Yeah,
is a community for community builders. Lots of
super
community.
meta.
Exactly. And something that we've run recently and started to spin out is user groups or
Mhm.
pods. So they're engagement pods on specific topics. And that's something that's been really cool to see. Just like super users come out of that and they're joining multiple pods and now they're getting involved in different aspects. And I'm seeing them really active on all of the Slacks. And it's just been one of the like single biggest drivers of engagement. And it's been really helpful to help that keep the community top of mind because they're
Yeah.
coming back for more, they're asking for more, and they're looking for more topics.
Mhm.
And that's really getting to the heart of the community. And the why is because we're really just trying to help. We're really trying to help community builders build the best communities that they can.
Yeah. And at least for me, I'm in multiple pods.
Mhm.
Um, so I really like it. I think when you start talking about like meetups, pods, user groups, whatever kind of that like recurring meeting um, program is, because I know many communities across all different types of community have something that resembles that overall program structure. I'm a big fan of like, yes, there are tons of metrics to track, which is great with something like it, but then equally, you also have to balance it with like the qualitative feedback that you get too,
Yeah,
because that's where you're actually going to be able to make those like micro improvements or potentially really big improvements. Um, you'll see that. And then you'll also see potentially this unique opportunity to identify your like big fans
hmm,
because they're not only continuously attending, but they're also providing feedback. I
yeah,
think when members share feedback regularly, it shows the level of like interest, excitement towards that overall like ownership, which is what we as community professionals love to see, like members getting involved and really making it more and more and more member driven.
totally. And it is about like having them generate some of the content. When your community is really hitting a rhythm when you don't have to be at everything, you don't have to have your hands in every bucket. And so when you're seeing, I very loosely moderate one of the pods, but I come with a framework, but I rarely follow it because people are just jumping in and they have their own questions. And it's really easy to even host them because
Mhm.
everyone's so engaged. And so that's really cool to see as well because it takes a lot of the really deep gritty work out of it at a certain point once you know who's really involved and you have those users that are continually coming back.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely helps. And then I think at that point, that's when organizations and community professionals often think then about scale
Yeah.
and like, how do we make this scale? Like, this model is working. How do we make it ready for the next five new ones that we're going to add, or the next 10 that are going to come in the next 18 months? Like,
Yeah, definitely.
so now I'm really curious. I love a good perks program for a
Mhm.
community because especially in today's economy, everyone loves a good discount or like feeling like that they're getting something special that's not offered to everybody. So have you had experiences with launching or potentially even being a user of a perks program? Like, how do you think about that in terms of keeping that value that's very tangible top of mind for members? Or if you were a member, how did like you see it being kept top of mind?
Yeah. So one of the biggest perks programs that I saw early on was through On Deck, and they had just a laundry list of every every tool you could ever want to use to build community, and they had discounts for it. So it was really great to model ours off of that in a way, just thinking about what founders want to use, what like they're all using Airtable or they're all using these tools, but let's get them a really good deal. So
Mhm.
we have about 200 plus perks for our founders. A lot of it really is just listening to them. So when we onboard them, they give me a list of their top tools that they would want to use. And if we don't have them, I work really hard to get them. And we would just continue to build that out. But we do drops. So it's either bi-monthly or monthly. And I just do a drop of all of the new perks and updates. And that goes out to all of our founders and they love it. I mean, it's really helpful. It reminds them of who's in the marketplace. It gives them an update of who's been added. And then it gives them a chance to also raise their hand to be listed on the marketplace or suggest a new one. So it's always coming to their inbox.
I I love that idea of not just like the drop in recurring nature of like here are the new ones, but then that last point of like some founders may then want to launch their own perk and offer it. I think that that's something so great where you can say like, yes, your company is valuable and like helpful to others. And I
Yeah.
also am now raising my hand to like help support other companies be successful through our product.
Yeah, and then learn about each other's companies also.
Mhm.
In a community of 600 plus founders, you're not going to know which companies necessarily are in the community. So we have to keep that top of mind. And I also, in our threads, if someone is saying, should we use Zendesk or
Mhm.
HubSpot? I always just chime in and say, hey, no matter what you use, we have a discount. So
Yeah.
don't forget to save money. And I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but they do. Sometimes they'll come to me and say, oh my God, I wish I knew this before I signed my contract and it's too late. And so I just want to be as upfront about we're saving you money from the get-go as possible because, as a founder, you are very cash strapped and you want to extend your runway as much as possible. So we want to help them do that.
Yeah. And especially in today's market, we want every dollar. We care about our unit economics.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm. Well, no, I think that that's really interesting, at least like in terms of measuring it, something that I've always kind of thought is could be a really easy way, depending on how an organization structures a perks program, is just watching like the page views if it's online or in like Notion where you can add like an analytics widget to it, um, and see like page views plus then like actual clicks, whether it's like you click a button and it opens like a pre-templated email to make the introduction or raise your hand or goes to some form that's special for your community. I think that those would be probably like the two simplest from my perspective of how you'd measure the overall like success of that type of program. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so early on, we started using Proven, which is
Mhm.
the Parks Marketplace. And there's a lot out there, and they're all really great. Built First is another one. Um, and it's helped us be very hands-off in terms of capturing the data, which is great. I mean, I can see who's reaching out to which companies, and I can see at the end of the year a total amount of dollars saved for our founders. Um, and I think that's really where I was missing originally when I was like, it was in an Airtable.
Mhm.
We didn't have the analytics. That
Yeah.
was really missing from knowing, okay, how many of our portfolio companies are using which CRM so that
Mhm.
we know, okay, 50% of them are using this, 50% of them are using this one. We have testimonials. And so it captures everything in one place. It's been very, very useful for us to just have that automatically within the platform.
That's awesome. I did not know that a perks management platform existed. So now
It's
I'm going to
great.
go check it out.
Yeah, there's
Thank
two
you.
main ones that I've heard of. But I also didn't know that about Notion, and that's really interesting. I kind of want to
Yeah.
check that out.
So there's a widget that I found. It's called Notion Lytics, and it's pretty cheap relatively. And you can like add it in, and it essentially gives you the equivalent, my understanding of like Google Analytics, but for a Notion page.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, I'm gonna
Mhm.
check that out. That's really interesting.
I
We
got
love
you too.
it.
Okay. I'm a Notion fan. I was intimidated at first, but then I became significantly more comfortable with it, and now I'm a fan.
Yeah, there's a ton of tools and there's a Loom video going around. I can't remember where I found it. I think on Twitter of someone showing how they use Notion for like
Mhm.
hacking, just making their day easier. I'll try to look it up, but it really helped me understand how to optimize Notion because
Mhm.
it's so much more than just a spreadsheet. And a ton of
Okay.
VC platforms use Notion as
Mhm.
their source of truth.
Yeah. And at least something else, we're going off tangent now, but I'm here for this conversation anyway, that I think is really interesting that we're seeing right now, really, for Notion, that I think is a really good long-term sign is like when other companies are building apps around the tool. We're
Right.
seeing that like there's Notion analytics. I know that there's like Notion forms for like a form feature. I know
Yeah.
that there's I forgot the name of it, but there's like a tool that allows you to add a button.
Oh, that's cool.
And I know it sounds weird, but like, who doesn't love a good button?
You love a button and it brings you to the right place, brings you where you need
Hmm.
to go. Um,
Exactly.
I mean, tooling's also just one of those things that I always like to share because people want to know what tools you use. Airtable has
100%.
been like the single most helpful tool to stay top of mind because it
Hmm.
automates what you want. It I would not recommend automating everything in community. I think at
For
the
sure.
heart and soul of community, you don't want it to be automated, but automating what you can that takes the work, the kind of digging deep work out of your inbox and sending emails and sending reminders and sending that DM to the community member after they've been in the community for 3 months.
Hmm.
That kind of stuff is so helpful and just really shows that you care. It's those little details. And it could just be, them saying hi and then you respond, but it's just getting it out there in the first place. So Airtable is like, I love it, secret
Hmm.
sauce. It's amazing.
Yeah, at least for me, definitely a big Airtable fan. I have not used it in terms of community, so interesting. Um, I think for me, the biggest thing when it comes to tools is like tools are great, but in terms of like automating, as you were saying, I'm a really big fan of automating things behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And when you're automating things that are member facing, doing it in a way that's hopefully as like personable and personalized as possible through like tags or like
Yeah.
through other data points to make the message very specific, even if that means like you have to send multiple messages and swap out some different like language or tags, whatever. Um, I think it's like that balance is helpful because
Totally.
you can't, especially at like 600 for you or like thousands of members, you're not
Right.
going to hand write each message. You
No. And
need something
600
that scales.
is on the grand scheme quite small. And so when you're thinking of hundreds of thousands, I mean, there's only so much you can do. And that's when you segment a lot more in the
Yeah,
subcommunities. But yeah, I think, Airtable has been one of my favorite tools. So would highly recommend.
awesome. I love that, and we'll keep that top of mind now. Um, so we're kind of coming up close to the end of our session today. Before we jump and end it, Allie, I need to know what's like one more big thing that you would share with people in terms of like how to keep community top of mind.
Yeah. I think the single most helpful way to keep community top of mind is to think about creating a flywheel from your newsletter, from your main, if it's Slack, if it's WhatsApp. We built ours internally. So we call it Gilder, and that's where all of our portfolio companies live. And so if it's Facebook, if it's LinkedIn, always linking to your marketplace if you want to make sure that's top of mind, to your content if you want to make that top of mind. But they're not going to be able to find it if you don't share it. So making sure that everything's linked between and bringing it back to that kind of wherever your source of truth is, because that's going to make then that action repeatable and remember your your community members will remember it and do it on their own. So once they see it enough, it's about persistence. And so then they'll start to replicate that and then just automatically go there. So I would say creating a flywheel is the number one most important thing.
Awesome. I love that point. That's great because then it like supports like the overall community ecosystem that you're building to
Yeah,
support members because it's typically many organizations I think don't think about it just in like one lane. It's many things that really make up community.
definitely. Yeah, a
Yeah.
great point. What about you? Throw it
So,
back.
okay, I think honestly, I'm a fan of mentorship programs. I think that they can be like a little tough to stand up, and I'll admit it, but I think the value that members get from it when you're asking good connect like questions on both sides to
Yeah.
make really strong and meaningful, impactful connections, like the value is so great
Yeah.
because you're helping people in their careers, you're making connections between members. So that's like, again, forming those bonds that are real. And then ultimately, like it's something that is pretty, from a measurement standpoint, pretty relatively easy around like NPS and comments again
Hmm.
are two quick wins for like showing value from this type of program. So I'm a fan of it. I just think you need to be extremely thoughtful when you're creating those questionnaires on both sides to
Yeah.
make those really good, meaningful matches.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what one of the things, especially doesn't depending on the community that you're running, but I would say is an overarching theme is um, being able to have the, give and take. There's going to be some people that come to your community who really just need help and they are early in their career or they're early in the community and they just want to learn and that's totally fine. And then there's going to be people who are later in their career and then they can be there to share. So finding that balance is super key and that's you can definitely pinpoint that with mentorship programs because if you have only takers, you don't really have anything to give. And if you have only givers, that's amazing, but you got to find some people to help. So I think that's a really great point, and that's definitely something that is crucial to community health.
Well, thank you, thank you. And thank you all for listening to our session today on best practices and ways to keep community top of mind for your members. Hope you continue to enjoy Rev Tech Summit 2023, y'all.
Thank you.